It's all happening. What the fuck is up, ghouls?
It has been too fucking long, ghouls.
It's been a while.
Hasn't been that long for you guys since we released an episode last week, but yeah, there's been some writer strikes, there's been some broken bones, there has been some surgery, but yeah, we're back at it, ghouls.
Let's go.
Romance, betrayal, the whole thing.
The whole 9 yards. But we are back.
So good evening, ghouls. My name is Alec, and in my mid-20s, I discovered I was basically media illiterate. So to get caught up, I joined the Undead Poet Society, ruled by our gastrointestinal goulashes, Robert.
Hey.
And Becca.
You didn't hear me toot? You said we were gastrointestinal goulashes, so I made a
And
fart
so you
noise.
farted on command?
No,
That's
with
crazy.
my mouth. I mean, yeah, with my ass.
I didn't hear it.
It didn't pick up.
anyways.
I thought you were
It
like
didn't pick up.
protesting or something.
No.
So ghouls, normally, if you're new around here, what we do is we either go to the movies and watch something current and then make an episode about that, or we'll go through a list that we've compiled of like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb's like top 100 movies, and we'll watch those, right? However, this is the beginning of a mini-series. If you're confused about the little thing that we did at the beginning of the episode, you'll soon understand why. Because we have a movie podcast, we have what's called the Regal Unlimited Pass, I think, right, is the name?
Yeah.
Regal, if you want to sponsor us, hit the email.
Movie pass.
So that we can like spend a reasonable amount of money going to the movies all the time, right? However, Regal Theaters, before each and every one of their movies, has this commercial, like a kind of ad. It's a Pepsi ad, I guess. We determined at the end because it shows the Pepsi logo. But if you have a moment, pause the podcast and look up like Regal. What would they Google? What would they put into YouTube? How did you find it last night?
Regal movie quote ad.
Yeah, Regal movie
Something.
quote ad.
I'll put it in the link in the description.
So if you need to, pause it right here, watch the ad. Okay, now that you're back, worst fucking commercial on the planet. Bad, indescribably bad commercial, and I have two major fucking bones to pick with it. The first is that it's basically an ad for going to the movies that's only shown to people who have already paid their ticket and are in the movies. I don't know why you're advertising for something. Like, you won, okay? Like, there's no need to shove it in my face. I'm here. And number two, on paper, it's not a bad idea. It's a commercial about movies, and so the people in it are speaking to each other in movie quotes. And there is even potentially a good way to do that, a funny way to do that, and that's not what we fucking got. Because if you watched it, you'll know that it basically just devolves into just random sentences they throw at each other that don't make any sense in context. It's a terrible, terrible commercial, and we've had to watch it and endure it so many times that we actually memorized it and would chant it before the beginning of each movie that we watched, to the alarm and consternation of our fellow moviegoers. However, recently, they announced that they're killing it. They're not going to show it anymore, which...
Hallelujah. Thank
God be praised. Praise be, because it's a terrible commercial. So we decided, we've had an idea for this for a long time, but we decided, in light of their recent decision, to celebrate the death of this commercial by actually watching all of the movies that they quote. And we're going to watch them in order. And the first one, if you went and watched that commercial, or if you already know the commercial, is what we did at the beginning of this episode. It's All Happening, which is from a movie called Almost Famous.
Not Almost Friday. That's what I thought for some reason.
Almost Famous is the name of the movie.
Which, I don't know if this is too early. Underrated. Criminally underrated. I can't believe I haven't heard more about this movie.
Maybe we'll have fans scream in their cars or at their phones when I say that I had never heard of
Never
this
heard of
movie. Like, not even kind of. But you know what? Fuck you. Like, there's a lot of movies running around. You can't have seen them all, and you don't know them all. And there's a movie
Also,
that somebody grew up with
That's
that
the point of the podcast.
other people have never
alright?
heard about. So fuck you.
We got into an argument. Well, not really like an argument, more like a conversation with one of our coworkers, and he was like, "Oh, you've never seen this? You've got a movie podcast?
That's
You've
the
never
goddamn
seen
point.
We were like, "That's the point. That's the
That's
point
literally
of the
the point,
podcast."
is that I haven't seen these movies,
He's
and
going
now we're
through our
watching
list.
them.
And he's like, bro, you've never seen this? No. What about that? You've never seen this one? Look at the name of the list, home dog. Like,
Literally just a list of important movies that I should have seen by, like, and we're admitting it, right? I've gotten to adulthood, and there are a lot of important movies that I should have seen by now that I haven't, and I'm rectifying that. So if you're mad at me for not having heard of Almost Famous before, fuck you. I had seen the poster at some point in the past. I've seen the poster recently, and it just I recognize it from somewhere deep and like buried in my subconscious. The posters of one of the main characters, Penny Lane, and the words "Almost Famous" are written on her sunglasses. But like, this is like, do we? You can edit this part out if I'm tripping, Robert. Do we summarize it in these episodes?
Yeah,
We do.
yeah.
I mean, I've hit that big old nasty miniseries explanation. So if one of you want to take over,
I can do it.
Yeah, go ahead. You got 2 minutes though.
2 minutes, bitch.
So, Almost Famous is a semi-autobiographical film directed by, I think it's Carl Crow. Cameron Crowe. And it's about a child who, in the beginning, is in 8th grade, learns that he's actually like 10 or 11 instead of 13. And when he's a senior in high school, well, I guess it's kind of important. His older sister does not get along with their mom, who's pretty controlling, and she leaves to become a stewardess and leaves all of her records, like rock and roll records, with her younger brother. So he grows up over the next 8 years or 5 years, listening to these records and wants to become a rock journalist. He's in love with rock and roll. And he meets this famous rock critic and gets put onto writing an article about Black Sabbath. He tries to meet the band, but instead meets their opener, a band called Stillwater. And the band itself is like a conglomeration of all of these bands that Crow had interacted with over his life.
Not to be confused with the actual band Stillwater, because that's an actual band, but I don't think they're like,
It's not them.
the
No,
same.
It's not.
Yeah.
Really? That's a bizarre
Yeah.
choice.
See,
No.
but not to butt into your thing too much, but I looked this up while we were watching the movie because I was like, are these people real? Because they keep talking about real bands and stuff, so it was like really confusing for me for a little while.
Yeah.
So I did a little
Same.
bit of figuring out. I'm glad you figured it out though.
No, well, and because they also credit the band, they credit the characters who are fictional characters
Yeah.
in this fictional band in the soundtrack, which is highly confusing, but really cool. Anyway, our main character, his name is William. He basically just gets caught up with these groupies and they fall in love with him. He's just like really charming, but really awkward. And they take him with them on their tour across the country. And every day he's like, I'm going to go home this next one, but he can't get the key interview. Oh, and he's also offered to write this article for Rolling Stone, and it becomes bigger and bigger, and he is offered the cover article for an issue of Rolling Stone. And the band goes through a lot of like ups and downs, like in love, out of love with him and with each other. And then in the end, he is getting the cover article and the band decides to deny everything that he said because they don't want him to expose them. And it basically just like ruins his dream And then Penny Lane, who is so important to the story, but like doesn't fit in a nice place in the synopsis, basically gets Russell, who's the guitarist, and he's the leader, not leader of the band, to go and apologize to William, and they make up, and he gets the cover article, and everyone ends well, and they go on tour the next year, and they become a big band.
The guy from Alvin and the Chipmunks is one of the band members.
He's
And
the lead singer of the
song
band.
that we hear, the first song that we hear is Alvin and the Chipmunks' Christmas song. So, all I'm saying, time's a fucking circle.
Absolutely, it is.
And if we're on that topic, so the guy from Alvin and the Chipmunks is the lead singer of the band, and after the movie was over, we
The
went
guy
on
who
to
plays
IMDb.
Dave, I should say, the human, not the Chipmunks.
Yeah, the human, I guess, band manager for the
in
Alvin
the
and
live
Chipmunks.
action Alvin and the Chipmunks, which is a fucking absurd sentence and a weird thing that we have to clarify.
Live
but
action.
Here we are.
Alvin and the
But
Chipmunks.
we went over to
dystopian.
IMDb, and this movie was released in 2000, and so there are a lot of people in it. Like the movie kept on going. We were like, oh, I know that face, I know that person, just over and over and over again. Zooey Deschanel is the older sister. Shit, I'm going to totally murder this because
Jimmy
I don't know
Fallon.
actors' names. Yeah, Jimmy Fallon.
Frances
is in it
McDormand.
towards the end. That one lady from the Wes Anderson movies.
Frances
I don't know.
McDormand.
Yes, and so on and so forth. It's a
Kate
pretty
Hudson.
star-studded cast, although they may not have been as big of stars when the movie first came out. I don't know though. I'm not a 2000s historian. Like, I don't know if this is where they got their start or if they were already famous and that's the reason they were put in the movie.
If they were almost famous.
Oh
Oh, shit. But yeah, dude, this movie fucks. It was so good.
It's so good.
So good.
We chose it. I mean, this is a bit, right? Like the miniseries, I'm excited to do it, but it's more or less a bit based on this commercial that we hated.
Yeah.
I found the movie. I hadn't heard anything about it before, and I was more or less content to just watch it on Discord while I did something else. And like 10 or so minutes into the movie, I had to stop what I was doing because I had to watch the movie. Like it arrested me, you know? Like I had to just watch the fucking movie because it was just a really good movie. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah. I had seen, so really my biggest complaint about the movie is just the length. It's a little bit too long, and you could very easily get rid of a good chunk of that by getting rid of the first part where he's like an 11-year-old, 8-year-old or whatever. And like all of that, I don't think we needed it. I think we could have started the movie when the sister angrily left and leaving the records under his bed, and that could have cut off some of the time. And I didn't feel really thematic, but really that's my only real complaint. It was a little bit too long. There's a couple scenes that were a little bit superfluous, a little bit cringy here and there. And I'm always shocked at these kinds of movies because I'm never really excited to watch these like early 90s, 2000s type movies. But they find a way to just kind of worm into your heart, and, you know, I find myself enjoying them despite some of their more obvious failings, I guess. But yeah, good movie. I liked it. A lot of fun.
That's something I wanted to talk about too.
When the main character kisses Penny Lane as she's like almost about to die from a drug
Right.
overdose and is like
Yeah,
barely
and
conscious.
like the fact that they groomed this kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact
know
that
what I mean?
he's 15 and he's
All
being
of that's kind
sexualized
of
by these older girls, but the older girls
They don't
themselves
know, though.
are being sexualized by these band members because
Yeah.
they're groupies.
Yeah.
Which doesn't feel
which
great.
I can understand that inclusion if you're gonna like really be like, oh, this is a bad thing, but they don't really
No,
do that.
they don't really. It's
You know, they just kind of get away with it, and it just, I don't know, a little bit of weird, gross, like early 2000s-ness that like you could not get away with that now, but it's not uncommon in these
There's this
like this era of movie, I guess.
There's this clip of who was it? Who was the? It's this clip of Ashton Kutcher, and he's talking about a celeb.
Yeah.
Who was the girl?
Hillary Duff.
Or so, like
Yes, it was
he's
Hillary
like,
Duff.
She's one of
And he
those
says-
girls where everybody's just like waiting at the edge of their seat until she's 18, and like and this isn't something that he was caught saying. Like this is like in front of the camera,
Said it with
and it's
his
just
chest.
wild.
In an interview.
It's almost inspiring how much progress we've made. That doesn't feel good anymore. When it was like, don't even bat an eyelash back in the 2000s. You know what I mean? Like that's a good thing, but it's also wild that like, ugh.
In our lifetime, that shit was happening on TV. In our fucking lifetime.
And to a large extent, it's still happening now. But at least we've gotten to the point where
You'd be ashamed of it at least.
Or you have to have like a dick persona in order to like say that stuff. Like you can't be normal and say that stuff anymore.
You got to be like an Andrew Tate or Alex Jones. You got to play some sort of like heel.
I think is objectively progress. So woo,
baby steps.
Pat on the back for society.
I had a lot of thoughts about the things you just said that I wrote down before. A lot of them you guys mentioned, but I kind of wanted to dig deeper into. I was kind of thinking about like initially when the film was over, I was like, I really loved this. It was awesome. And then I was thinking about it a little bit more and I was like, it's kind of not though. I don't know. I really enjoyed the vibe. It's one of those things. It's not quite as bad as it was when I watched The Breakfast Club, because during The Breakfast Club, I was like, yeah, this sucked. Like these certain aspects, not good. Not good. But like, I mean, obviously the grooming thing, it just, I mean, like, obviously they didn't know he was 15. Even when he says to Penny Lane that he's 15, she was like, I'm 18, I'm 17. I'm 16. The truth just feels different, doesn't it? And you don't know how old she is. You don't know that she is 16 because he was lying, and like she could have been lying, and she was there the year before, so like she could be 18. So she doesn't even necessarily, in my brain at least, doesn't clock that he is 15. I mean, like, he looks like it, but he tells everyone else he's 18. Russell doesn't understand that he's 18 until he talks to his mom. And then at that point, he kind of just steps back. He's like, this is crazy. But I'm so tired of the patriarchy. And that's just my entire prerogative in my entire life, is to educate and dismantle the patriarchy. And if you rolled your eyes at that, you're the problem.
Oh, shit.
So, but that's another thing. You can stop listening if you want, because I'm not leaving. Basically, I said loved, but also hated. And I was like, why? Like, what is with this child boy falling for the older woman? It is reminiscent of Licorice Pizza. And if you haven't seen Licorice Pizza...
Not nearly as bad, though.
No, not nearly as bad. If you haven't seen Licorice Pizza... It's this beautiful film. It's a love story. It's something that I would have I just would have devoured, except the fact that there's a 10-year age gap, and it's a boy of 17, not a girl of 7, a girl of 27. Either way, not a fan, because it's clear from the beginning that their ages are that different, because they meet at school. And she's taking pictures at school.
Yeah, she's a school photographer.
She's a school photographer. So it's like evident from the beginning. It's not like
the first conversation they have is
how
about
old are you?
Their age difference.
And and then they end up together, and it's not okay. And I don't like, it was an amazing movie.
Well, and I think by the end of the movie, he's like almost 18, and that's like how they justify it. But she showed him her breast when he was 16 years old.
And before his 17th birthday. I don't like it. But anyway, it just, the whole movie piggybacking off of that is that the entire movie, like the entire concept, I understand that it's autobiographical, and that's kind of the problem, is that it plays into the male fantasy of that Philip Seymour Hoffman's like monologue that he has at the end, when he's talking about like why an article is good if you don't fit in. It's because all art is meaningful, because you're a loser, basically. Which I guess is true, because it is a beautiful monologue about like how it's about like art is about grief, and it's about wanting to fit in and not fitting in. It's about cognitive dissonance. That's why we make art, is because we can't understand the things that are going on, or we do understand them and we want to show other people how we understand them. Which inherently it means that there must be a difference going on. Which is beautiful, and I love that that happened, except that it feels like a co-opted incel monologue, where it's this young boy who is liked by so many people and is invited to go on this crazy adventure touring the country with a rock band in the 70s. And he's like, "Oh, but I don't fit in." But like, you're still there, dude. Like like I don't fit in because I'm so young. You are 15 years old. You shouldn't fucking be there. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a mopey boo-hoo thing. But in the end, you still, like, it's just this male fantasy of, like, I want to be the loser by, like, I want to be the winner by being the loser. I don't know if that makes any sense. He's also surrounded by these women. He's surrounded by this money, but he doesn't partake in any of it because he's righteous. I don't know. Like, I don't know if, like, what I'm saying makes sense to you guys, but it just so deeply feels like that male fantasy of like escaping and being surrounded by these women and being like in love with this woman who doesn't even see you, but like you're 15, bro. And I don't know. It's kind of like we talked about with the women who groomed him, who were actually being groomed by these men. It just is, it's a circle, and it just didn't feel good to me. That's one of the things I want to talk about. Another thing you guys did hit on, but I wanted to see if you had any comments about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like one of those things where it's like, if that's true, then I am the person that they were appealing to, and it just kind of worked, you know what I mean? And I guess like I can't comment on like the nature of like how that affects like women and stuff like that. I that's something that I didn't think about when I was watching the movie, but that doesn't mean, yeah, I don't know.
Right. No, and I did like the movie.
Didn't you say that it's autobiographical though?
It's semi-autobiographical.
Like, can it be a fantasy if it actually happened to the guy?
Did it though? Like, because I don't know the specifics. I don't know how much of it happened.
I don't know.
And I think it can be a fantasy because you choose to talk about what you want to talk about.
I think there's a place for fantasy in movies. I will agree that like male fantasies in particular are overserved. I don't think that they're inherently bad. I think they're bad in context. Does that make sense? Like when you take like the full sum of like just like the over pop, like the, what's the word? I'm like the oversaturation of male fantasy in media, I think is definitely a problem, but fantasy alone is definitely not a bad thing. And I'm not sure it even qualifies as fantasy if this is just like a Big Fish style retelling of something that actually happened to him. A friend of mine recently made me promise to read A Court of Thorns and Roses. I don't know if you've like, I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but it's a YA fantasy with a female protagonist, and it is like it's so eye-opening for me that like the plot of the book is that she's like basically kidnapped by like this like fairy hunk guy. And it's incredible. Like every time he appears, like quote unquote on screen, I know it's a book, but like every time like he appears, like she mentions either his like shoulders or his muscles or his, like, you know what I mean? And that doesn't make the book bad, but it does make me feel like, wow, is this like, this must be how women feel when like every female character in a TV show or a movie is visually established by like an upskirt shot or like focusing on her tits first and then like exploring outwards, you know what I mean? And my point being that like both men and women have fantasies. Fantasies aren't inherently bad. I don't think that this was a particularly strong male fantasy because he doesn't. Again, if these are things that actually happened to him, then that kind of muddies the water in that respect. And I think specifically, I think that this movie, at least now that I think about it, at least does it pass the Bechdel test? Hold on, I'm thinking.
I do not believe so.
Specifically the character arc between the mom and the daughter. Obviously, it's not like the primary thing, but like this.
No, yeah, you're right.
Going on a bit of a tangent, I am impressed by this movie's ability to really tie up its loose ends towards the end. Like everything feels like it comes to a satisfactory conclusion. Like the tour comes to a satisfactory conclusion. There's a reckoning between the lead singer and Russell, like the main guitarist. There's a reckoning between the main character journalist and the guitarist. There's a reckoning between the mother and the daughter who have been like avoiding each other for several years and just kind of come together and choose to focus on the fact that they they choose to focus on the fact that they love each other, or their love for each other trumps their hate for each other in like a I don't know if that's like the right way to word it. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed the movie. But it's obviously not without its issues.
Yeah, and I think as far as like if it is a male fantasy movie, I'm just glad it's not as bad as like I don't know something like Licorice Pizza is a good example. You know where that's a intensely male fantasy movie of like that's especially problematic, and I don't think this one like in context is as problematic. Especially because I feel like the character, like the protagonist, in a lot of ways things are happening to him. Like he doesn't have a lot of driving.
For sure.
It's almost Gatsby-esque in that way.
Yeah, and he's not the main character, I don't think, necessarily. It's more Russell.
Right.
And in that way, I can see what you're saying. And as far as like a male fantasy, because he's the pinnacle of male fantasy, a fucking rock star, sleeping with women, getting drunk and doing acid, but I don't think necessarily the male fantasy of it pertains to the main character, because I think the main character is very sweet and innocent, and no one wants to be the main character necessarily. You know, you want to be Russell, you want to be one of the boys.
Yeah. And the movie kind of goes to great pains to show that he's kind of a loser.
And he doesn't like not want to do drugs because he's like too good for it or anything. It's just like he's so fucking painfully awkward and just innocent and doesn't know what to do with that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's not fuck women incel kind of mindset. I think it's much more like innocent, like he's a child, he's unsure of himself, and like it's him coming to grips with growing up, and that I think is the part that I latched onto personally, less about like the, you know, really cool rock star stuff and more about like this coming of age story of this kid in this like kind of fantastical way, and seeing these relationships are like not healthy and not like something that you should strive for necessarily. And actually it's kind of puritanical in that way, which I guess is a different conversation.
I will say the main character to me was in theory he's absolutely critical, right? Because like this is an extremely different movie if it's from Russell's perspective, because that's not a coming of age story, you know? Like it's the charm of the movie is that something extraordinary is happening to a relatively unextraordinary person, and they get to they get to experience that, and your audience is going to be made like statistically of generally unextraordinary people, so that it's so I think that that's a part of its charm. And in order to retain that charm, you have to reinforce the fact that our journalist main character, what is his name? Is it Michael Miller? William Miller. William, like the movie has to constantly reinforce the fact that he's unextraordinary. That the conversations between him and the cream journalist, right? Like, we're losers and pretty. Also, very small tangent. What a fucking banger when he said, like, because grief or art is about like grief and loss, pretty people can't make great art. Because like their lives are too easy and they don't feel enough grief. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was really fun to like turn over in my head like a shiny rock you found in a riverbed, Yeah, the character on paper is absolutely essential if you want to have the kind of movie that this is. But I don't know if it's the writing or if it's the actor in particular. I don't want to say that the actor did a bad job, but like I was so enthralled whenever literally anyone else was doing something, like when Russell was doing something or when Penny Lane was doing something. But I kind of had to endure William a little bit. I don't know, like other people can have a different opinion, but like. And maybe that's just the fate of the who's Gatsby's Nick Carraway, right?
Nick Carraway,
maybe that's just the fate of Carraway's, is that like if you want to have this fly on the wall type story, you have to endure that fly on the wall, and it is just going to be a fly, because if it weren't, then it wouldn't be a fly on the wall. But yeah, I think that he was my least favorite part of the story, even though to remove him would be to make the story into something completely different. Although there were times where he did kind of show through, like when he's like at he's like hanging out backstage with the band for like one of the first first 3 times or whatever, and like one of the groupie girls is like kind of like pulling her moves on him, and she's like, oh, if like he says something was really awkward, but that she decided to interpret as funny. She's like, you're funny. If only you were taller and English and rich and played guitar. And he was like, but then I'd be a completely different person. And she was like, yeah. And like, it's moments that I don't know, that the characters shine through and that the actors shine through. But I will say that the main character, I think, was one of the weaker parts of the movie. Don't know if that's because of writing or because of if that's the actor's performance, but I did feel that at certain points. Also, Russell, the actor that played Russell, ludicrously attractive.
Zaddy.
Jesus.
Absolute
fucking
zaddy.
Christ on the cross. Like, I was distracted by how handsome that man was.
Made
and
me
they
reconsider mustaches.
I've noticed that our fashion, especially like TikTok and Instagram forward fashion, has circled back around to like really loose fitting clothing. And this is a period piece in the 70s, and so he almost looked like a TikToker. like he had the 70s hair that's kind of like shorter, like banged up front and longer in the back, that hasn't made its way around yet. So you can kind of tell that he's supposed to be in a movie that's from the 70s, but like with like the mustache and like the super like loose fitting like corduroy or canvas like button down shirts and stuff. And you know what I mean? He almost felt like a influencer, or like he had a YouTube channel or something. But yeah, just like unbelievably attractive men. By far the most attractive person in that movie.
And that's what I'm trying to say is that you said this earlier. Most of the people watching this movie aren't Russell. Most of the people watching this movie are William. And so I guess the term may not be correct with like the male fantasy, but like the idea that you can put yourself in this box and like go on a trip. I don't know, like this could happen to me. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not like such a loser. I don't know. And I looked it up. It's not the parts where it's autobiographical is that he did graduate at 15 and he met Ben Fong Torres, the editor of Rolling Stone, and wrote for them. But he didn't do like that was it. Like he didn't go on trips, like he didn't go on a trip with them. Like that wasn't that wasn't what happened. Which of course the story has to be like fantastical and stuff, but I don't know. Maybe the term I'm using is just wrong, but like what you guys have explained is true and valid, but it's just not the point I'm trying to make. So maybe I'm just not explaining it very well. But you guys did talk about how important it is that we've moved on, and like that we have found different things, like some things have aged not very well, and like the times have changed, and it's good that we can look back and see that that's not how you should treat people. And specifically you brought up the plane scene where the guy like shouts out I'm gay and then suddenly they're fine, and that's obviously supposed to be the funniest part. I don't know if you guys heard me, but I like was dying when Jimmy Fallon goes, I killed a man. I was a hit and run. And I was dying. That was so funny. And I feel like it wasn't meant to be as funny as it was, because it was supposed to be building up, because you have that and then you have immediately like it gets really dramatic and then the last band member shouts like I'm gay, and that was supposed to be the funny thing because it was the year 2000. And it's just really interesting. I was thinking about that this morning and I was like, what a way we've changed that, like that's not funny anymore. It kind of reminded me of this video on TikTok that I saw of this really cringy like southern white couple that has a baby, and the man is making a video and goes like, your hair looks beautiful today, hon. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. And then he goes, oh, I'm not talking about that hair. I'm talking about your gorilla legs.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is so repulsive. Like, and I'm like, well, maybe just because I'm a feminist, like nobody's in the comments is going to be like, yeah, for real, shave your legs, bitch. Even though she had maybe like a week's worth of growth on her legs. It's crazy. But I went to the comments and there was not a singular comment praising that man. And this wasn't even like a repost. This was on their account. Like this was their content, original content. And I was really proud of society for not like that we all collectively can be like, okay, yeah, that was wrong. When like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, that would have been like, yeah, for real, shave your legs. Like, women have to be clean. And maybe we'll look back, and I know we'll look back and see a bunch of things that are normal today that aren't. But it's just really cool to have those moments where you're like, wow, we aren't such pieces of shit in that same way anymore. But because you need those every once in a while, because it's still a bad world out there.
Yeah, there's plenty of shitty things out there. It's nice to every once in a while see something and think, at least we've grown in that way. And even if it's just the content that we include in these silly little videos and movies and books that people consume. Yeah.
Really is the minuscule things.
Yeah, exactly. But they add up.
They do.
Eventually, over time. I thought it was a really good conflict that they had, where like he was the quote unquote enemy because he's a journalist. And so like, I don't know, it was a fun conflict where like they're friends, but there's still like that tension between them, and it was a driving force. But like things were still cordial, and like there was a little bit of drama between the band members, but there was nothing really life and death, you know? Very small conflict. It was interesting and weird kind of thing to kind of press the story forward. A lot of these kinds of movies don't have that kind of complex tension or motivation, and I think that's kind of like what I liked about this is like it could have been really dumb and silly, but I thought it was a little bit more nuanced than you know it could have been, or that it had really any right to.
Well, it's all happened.
It has all happened. And we're only just starting, though.
Past tense. We are only just starting. So this is our mini-series. We've just watched Almost Famous. Obviously, you just listened to a whole episode about it. I looked up ahead, and the next one, the next quote in the commercial is, "This thing's bigger than my apartment." And that is apparently from a movie called Beverly Hills Cop. I don't know how high my hopes are, but
Surely this one will fit my expectations.
they can't all be good, right?
No. Dumb and Dumber's on this list. So
They're just famous.
Yeah,
So,
famous. Famous is the
fact that
qualifier.
we have it, that they're the fact that these are movies that you haven't heard of is alarming because these are supposed to be some of the most famous movies of all time. That's why they're being quoted.
Had you heard of them before? Almost
yes.
Famous and Beverly Hills Cop?
Yes. I've never
Have you
seen
seen
them
Beverly Hills
because they're
Cop?
rated R and because I was raised Mormon and did not see a rated R movie until I was like in my 20s. So
Maybe I was just a better Mormon than you, dude. I didn't even hear about rated R movies.
I also had a
good, dog.
dad actor, so like I had to have some exposure.
Tell it to the judge, buddy.
Tell it to God, buckaroo.
That's okay. You can be a better Mormon than I am. I'll give that to you.
Oof. She
I didn't-
really threw that back
Yeah,
at you.
there's no recovering from that.
There's oof. But yeah, so the cool thing about this is you know the next however many movies we're going to watch, so you can get ahead. You can, watch them at your leisure for the next little while. I found it on some random Reddit post. Yeah. Get ahead, do whatever.
And see
have
if
fun.
you can find if there's any correlation between the outfits, because there was for this movie. But
Yeah, the actress in the commercial who says it's all happening is
she's wearing Penny Lane's
she's
coat.
wearing a coat that looks like Penny Lane's coat, and then the guy who answers her is wearing a Letterman's jacket, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe.
I don't know.
But I mean, like the kid at the end does like a Casablanca quote, and he's dressed up like
Yeah,
a
well, he's
real
the theater
boy.
kid.
So there's
I don't know
like
how
an
much-
a series of elf quotes, like.
I don't know how much
Yeah.
of this is going to actually correlate to the movies, but I would be
would be
interested
funny.
to see if there was
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah,
of
maybe
correlation. You
there's-
know what I mean? Because there are some weird
There are
outfits.
definitely
There's
some
like
weird
that gal who's wearing
Suspenders?
the suspenders. Yeah, and so is that
it's
supposed to be a
Goonies.
reference?
She says the Goonies quote, so maybe.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Goonies, so I don't really
Oh.
know.
Man,
Damn, even I've seen the Goonies. That's crazy.
Goonies is a staple.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest. That's the one when people find out that I haven't seen it, they go, "What?"
I
Even as a
remember it
Mormon.
being really fun, but it's from the 80s, and those ones tend to either really hold up or really not.
Really
hold up.
don't. Yeah.
So I guess we'll see.
People talk about this one a lot, though.
It's-
So
I remember it being really fun, but I couldn't watch it all because I was scared of sloth because I was ableist.
I remember the set design being off the chain. There's like
Yeah, it's so
like
cool.
this organ like made of bones and shit, and like
pirate
a pirate
ship.
ship
Ooh.
in like a cave, and like yeah,
So
it was
good.
It was
Yeah,
it went.
children
This
Just
isn't
so
the
I've seen
Goonies
it.
podcast. We still got a few to go.
Yeah, so go watch the Goonies. I guess. I mean, that'll be a little bit farther
that's a
down
lot.
the line, but
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's been fun. Good to be back in the saddle.
it really is.
Well, you're missing two critical things, boys.
Are we doing that for this one?
We need to record or write our poems, and we need to put them on our letterbox list.
Yeah, I didn't know if we
Yeah.
were doing that. Okay.
Well, getting into the saddle
It's
requires remembering what being in a saddle is like.
You know, sometimes you break your leg and you can't start walking right away.
Sometimes you get back into the saddle, and sometimes you get saddled.
The
Oh.
saddle gets back in you.
You can take the saddle out of the back end, but you can't get the end out
No.
of the saddle.
Well, what did you guys rank it?
I'm eating pasta salad.
I could tell.
I ranked it 41.
I had a 40.
Oh wow.
Wow.
See, my name's Becca and my list doesn't mean anything. So I put it at 33. I kicked Creed 3 out of that spot.
Dang. Me and Robert
Interesting.
spent so much time talking about how much we liked it, and I feel like Most of your time was spent by your dissatisfaction with it, and despite that, it ended up being a lot higher on your list.
Well,
But
like we
you
said.
just prefaced it with the fact that your list doesn't matter. So, which begs the question, why do you even have one? But maybe
Because
that's a
you
topic for
forced
another
me
day.
into this. I need to do the tears, but I never will, so it's fine.
And that's, by the way, listeners, if you're unaware, if you're new here, we've ranked all the movies that we've seen for this podcast specifically. And of 62 movies on my list, I think that number isn't exactly the same for Robert and Becca, but of 62 on my list, it got to place 41.
And this is on Letterboxd. So go follow us on Letterboxd.
Oh yeah, and then you can see. You can see the absolute utter fucking travesty that is Becca's list.
I mean, I still have Avatar pretty close to the bottom, so.
Pretty close.
As long as we can.
No,
agree on that.
it's above Cocaine Bear, and Smile, and Pray for the Devil, and Skinamarink.
Yeah, Smile and Pray for the Devil are below Avatar for me.
Wow.
I don't think anything will ever be below Pray for the Devil. God, Pray for the Devil makes me
At
so
least it
mad.
was
I don't even.
short.
Because
I don't
he
even wanna
didn't
talk about
watch
it.
Skinamarink.
I'm gonna
Poem?
watch it and claim to like it just to trigger you.
I mean, Jordan kind of did. I don't know if you guys have heard his arc.
He said it scared him, not that he liked it.
Yeah.
Like afterwards, it scared him.
True. That it worked.
Yeah, exactly. All right, poems. Who's going first?
I can go. On the verge of life lies an adventure and a line of coke. There's a backstage pass in the pocket of every worn green coat you can't remember putting on the night before. On the verge of love, there's a girl with a fake name donning a mask in someone else's hotel room. So down the Quaaludes while you can still slow dance in the shattered glass of a child left to his own devices. On the verge of fame sits a man on the other end of the phone, in an office, in a robe, in a suit, in a broken home, guiding art or stifling it, but seeing that you remain almost famous.
Snaps.
Ending on the title.
Yeah, I had to.
Got to. All right, I'll go next. Flawed art that makes me feel like a lead singer. In 20 years, I'll interview the coke-stained bathroom mirror and cringe at what used to make me belly laugh. It's all happening, too fast and too slow. 10 days in Boise feels like 10 bombs dropped in a country I'll never see. A problematic fave, de-emphasize the problematic. When your expectations are 6 feet deep, even a blade of grass seems like a rock star looking down from their stage.
Oh, you didn't have to go hard, but like...
I'm dedicating my poem to Becca's feminist rant.
Nice.
Your manic pixie dream girl has arrived, but she's not here for you. She's for Morocco. She's worldly and confident and too young for most of the male audience, despite them secretly wanting her anyway. Lucky for her, they can't have her. We'll never get her. She'll get over you. She'll travel in love and age, gathering wrinkles and body fat like protective charms against the groping eyes and minds of older men. She'll dance on the wind's edge and never fall. She'll hang around the rich and famous until she gets bored. And she'll always spot the losers who paradoxically think they deserve her. She'll always be on a flight, bound towards that greenest pentagram on that reddest blood. Bound, but not bound, for Morocco.
There we got the flag lore in there.
Morocco has an S-tier flag. Number one flag,
S-tier flag,
folks.
people.
You guys went hard.
Saw that creative energy just like pent up, like blue balls.
Mine
This
is
gonna
all
become a
leaking
nofap
out through
podcast.
my leg.
My leg.
My eye.
You clipped so bad.
I even leaned back.
All right, ghouls.
We're happy to be back. This was fun.
I'm not happy to be back. Oh, fuck you, ghouls.
Back on our regular schedule. It's all
all happening.
Good night.
Good night, ghouls. Bye.
Bing, ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Bing,